Thank you very much. Testing English audio. 1, 2, 3. Testing English audio for captions. Thank you. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, everyone. Just a quick announcement. We'll be actually starting here at about 9:10 or 9:15, just waiting for a quorum of the board. So thanks, everyone, for the patience. Good morning. There you go. Now you can talk.
Thank you. We just admitted an individual on the Zoom platform who came in as an iPhone. I'm going to invite you to unmute, and if you could identify yourself so we can rename you and have you participate in the meeting.
Ezra Curry.
Can you repeat your name one more time, please?
Ezra Curry.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ezra.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Joaquin Esquivel, Chair of the State Water Resources Control Board. Today is Tuesday, April 15th. It is 9:11 a.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'll begin by introducing my fellow board colleagues. Joining me this morning is Vice Chair Doreen Diadamo and Board Member Sean McGuire. We're also joined by our Executive Director, Eric Oppenheimer, our two Chief Deputies, Jonathan Bishop and Karen Mogus, our Clerk, our Chief Counsel, Michael Loffer. Our Clerk of the Board is Courtney Tyler, and assisting her this morning is Margie Argel and Elizabeth Carrillo. As you can see, this meeting is a hybrid meeting with both in-person and virtual components. If you're joining us virtually, you're viewing us either through the traditional webcast on the Cal EPA website or the YouTube Live site. But if you intend on commenting on any of today's items, you need to be on the Zoom platform. There is a link at the top of the agenda and instructions on how to do so. But if you have any challenges getting onto the Zoom platform, please do just email the clerk of the board at board.clerk@waterboards.ca.gov, and she can help get you onto the platform. Once you are on the platform, your camera will be off. You will be on mute until it's your turn to speak on the item you've indicated. For everyone in the room, good morning. Good to see you all. We're here in Sacramento in the California Environmental Protection Agency building. A few announcements for us here as well. Please do observe the exits. If we happen to have an emergency, we'll calmly file out to Cesar Chavez Plaza and await further direction. Also, if you intend on commenting on any of today's items, there is a QR code at the side of the room. There's also a laptop if you would like to sign up. Once you're at the podium, please do introduce yourself and any organization you're affiliated with. And lastly, please do silence phones just so that we have an uninterrupted discussion this morning. We'll begin this morning's meeting as we customarily do with public forum for those wishing to address the board on an issue not currently agendized before the board. And it looks like we have about 9 or so public commenters this morning, and so I'll just take them in order of those that have signed up to speak. And I believe our first commenter will be Kimberly Graves, be followed by Ezra Curry, Kamika Curry, and then Jiari Garcia. That's right. Good morning.
Nobody heard me? Were you guys? Okay. Okay, thank you. Um, After I refused, I believe decision was made to make me spend money for an unnecessary backflow protection at my expense. According to the Cross-Connection Control Policy Handbook, the definition of cross-connection is the interconnection between a public water system and a non-drinking water source, which could allow contamination water to backflow into the water supply. Backflow occurs when a non-potable source is at a greater pressure than a potable water distribution system. Backflow can occur from either back siphonage or back pressure. Cal Water Rule 16 states in Section C1A, it says no physical connection between the potable water supply system of the public utility and that of any other water supply or source of actual or potential contamination will be permitted except in compliance with the regulations of the State Department of the Public Health. The definition of a loop-through hazard occurs when pressure from the contaminated source exceeds the pressure in the potable water system, causing a backflow or a back siphonage event where the contamination water flows back into the drinking water lines. Cal Water Rule 16-2CI I states premises that have more than one service connection present a loop-through hazard, such that backflow protection on all service connections must be installed. Each backflow prevention assembly must be commensurate with the highest degree of hazard present, but must provide no less protection than a double check valve assembly. However, based on the definition, a loop-through hazard, my property poses no such risk because I do not have a non-potable water source on my property. My next door neighbor has a fourplex with 1 meter serving multiple uses. Rule 16-2CJ states premises that have multiple uses sharing 1 meter must install a RPZ due to the risk of occupancy change without notification to the utility. They have never, this fourplex is existing and Cal Water has never approached the owners about installing an RPZ backflow device as they have purposely stopped me from continuing with my project by withholding my meters until I install that device. Cal Water Rule 16C2L states residential fire sprinklers do not need a backflow prevention system if they are designed and installed using potable water piping and materials and have connections to points of regular use to prevent degradation of water quality, with which mine is set up that way. My fire sprinklers are set up with potable water. It flushes through the system from, this is something a fire marshal requires in Stockton. So I don't have a system and that would need to have a backflow device. My plans were made following the California Plumbing Code and has hose bibs 1 inch with anti-siphon valve. The building is a new construction being built according to the California Plumbing Code. The California Plumbing Code specifications are to prevent contamination of the potable public water supply. The general principle of backflow prevention applies to all plumbing fixtures connected to the potable water supply. I just want to say that in the beginning, I wanted to give you the background because I feel that I'm being discriminated against, and this is bias for them coming after me. And they lied and said I had a 3/4 inch pipe when I always had the 1 inch. And I have evidence in writing that they claimed they went out to the property and installed these 1 inch meters. But then their supervisor said they never did that because I always had a 1 inch meter. So it's been 3 months and I am really frustrated and overwhelmed because I've been talking to their leadership. I've even emailed the CEO of Cal Water. I've emailed their general counsel. I've studied, as you can tell, I've went to the law library to study and understand everything about this. I've even talked to backflow experts that have been doing this for 30 years. One of the experts who's here in California refused to work with me because Cal Water intentionally went to him after I told them what he said and convinced him to side with them and not with me. So he stopped all communication. I reached out to another expert in Michigan, and he was so kind and generous that he gave me all of this information. And there are other people who I've talked to, including an engineer in your water board. And I can't call his name right now, but he also said that I don't need this device. And there is something going on with the way the code is written that he's going to request that you guys, that the water board backflow group workforce look over and correct it. But at this time, the reason that you see the emotion is because I will actually literally lose all my financing and default in my loan if they don't let me finish my project. And I can't finish until they give me my meters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graves. I appreciate you elevating your issues here and concerns to us. We do have your email address, and so I'll ask that the Division of Drinking Water specifically follow back up with you and help to be an intermediary here with Cal Water and your issues. So thank you, Ms. Graves. Really appreciate you elevating this here at Public Forum. Next, I'd like to call up Ezra Curry, be followed by Kamika Curry, and then Jiari Garcia.
Hello, good morning. My name is Ezra. I am here on behalf of my mother, Kimberly Graves, and her attempt to get Cal Water to provide the 4 water meters so she can complete her new construction building in Stockton. She is unable to pass inspection for the underground plumbing. This is also preventing her from completing the outside work, including the sidewalk, curb, and gutters. Currently, she has been attempting to work with Cal Water in ongoing conversations since January of this year. Her project is being financed, and if nothing happens soon, it will jeopardize her ability to complete the project. My mother is a woman with a vision and a big heart. She started her nonprofit in 1993 to help at-risk youth. Now, 32 years later, she is attempting to provide young adults housing and teach them independent living skills. These are some of the most deserving youth who have experienced trauma and abandonment throughout their lives. This project is in alignment with the governor's mandate to provide much needed housing in California. It would be unfortunate if a forfeit quasi-government agency is allowed to incorrectly interpret the state water board regulation to block the completion of this worthy project. Governor Newsom appointed members to the State Water Resource Control Board to protect the public, not to destroy visions such as this. The governor signed Proposition 1, providing funding for new housing for our veterans and those suffering with mental health. Assembly Bill 1413 was also created because California has a housing supply and affordability crisis of historic proportions. The consequences of failing to effectively and aggressively confront this crisis are hurting millions of Californians, robbing future generations of the chance to call California home, stifling economic opportunities for workers and businesses, worsening poverty and homelessness, and undermining the state's environmental and climate objectives. This bill was signed by the governor on September 19th, 2024. This bill prevents a local government from disapproving a housing project and committing an abuse of discretion if certain conditions are met. While this bill is not pertaining to Cal Water abuse of power in relation to the cross-connection control policy handbook, my mother is here today to alert you to this problem. Cal Water is intentionally misinterpreting the intent of the regulation to withhold the water meters that are necessary to complete her project. She has spoken to several backflow experts, including one of your engineers, that agree with her. They agree that her property does not have any other water source that could potentially cross-connect with the public water source. She does not have any chemical solvents or contaminants on her property. So Cal Water is abusing its use of discretion as a form of retaliation, and my mother has the receipts to prove it, including emails from the staff at Cal Water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Next, I'd like to call up Kamika Curry.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. Okay, good morning. My name is Kamika, and I'm here on behalf of Kimberly Graves, my mother. She project spearheaded this development that she's currently housing units specifically designed to support former foster youth. This program aims to provide not only stable housing, but also training in independent living skills for young adults between the ages of 18 and 21. The development is a new construction project and is being built in full compliance with the 2022 California Plumbing Code. These code specifications are intended to protect the public potable water supply from contamination. In line with these standards, the building has been carefully designed to prevent backflow across all plumbing fixtures, including shower heads and toilets, which are installed with safeguards against back siphonage. The project has been reviewed and approved by the City of Stockton, and it meets all applicable requirements concerning the separation of water service and sewer lines. Furthermore, while the code requires a minimum pipe size of 3/4 inch, my mother has ensured that all piping is 1 inch, exceeding the requirement. Importantly, the property does not have a well, an irrigation system, or an other auxiliary water source, eliminating any risk of cross-connection to the public water supply. We are requesting a formal review of the ongoing issues related to this project. Specifically, we ask that you evaluate whether Cal Water is overstepping its authority or retaliating against my mother, as she has previously suggested. If allowed to proceed, these actions could unjustly derail a critical community initiative. The additional cost being imposed, estimated at over $25,000, could make the project financially unfeasible, not to mention the burden of recurring annual inspection costs. It will be a great injustice to allow technicalities or questionable decisions to halt a program with such positive impact on young lives transitioning out of the foster care system. We appreciate your time and consideration in reviewing this matter thoroughly and fairly. Thank you.
Thank you as well, Ms. Curry. Appreciate you elevating this along with your mother and brother to the attention of the board, and looking forward to circling back on the issue. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up Jiari Garcia, who'll be followed by Evelyn Wendell and then Isabel Solorio. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Esquivel, board members, and staffers. My name is Jiari Garcia. Okay, I'll start over. Good morning, Chairman Esquivel, board members, and staff. My name is Jiari Garcia, and I'm here on behalf of the Community Water Center. Firstly, I'd like to thank the State Water Board for the opportunity to comment. I'll be commenting on the board's efforts to fund drinking water projects across California since 2021. I have reviewed data on water infrastructure funding in my process, I have received data from the State Water Board and sorted it by various project types and funding categories, including loan, grant, principal forgiveness, emerging contaminants, construction, and planning, safe and affordable drinking water funding, drinking water general fund, DWSRF, and other funding sources. I also organized the data by disadvantage status and identified how much funding came from each source for multiple source projects. Once the data was thoroughly sorted and categorized, I was able to draw informed conclusions that supported my findings. I want to share a few key findings and why they matter for our most vulnerable communities. Overall, we see that many funding sources are largely dedicated for disadvantaged communities in comparison to non-disadvantaged communities. This effort has helped reduce, in the hundreds of thousands, the number of Californians served by failing water systems. This is an encouraging sign that resources are being directed where they're needed most. Additional technical assistance and community engagement will be critical to reaching the nearly 800,000 residents who have been denied their human right to water. One standout observation, however, is that non-disadvantaged communities have received significantly more funding when it comes to the federal Emerging Contaminants Program. This is concerning, especially as we know emerging contaminants can pose serious health risks, and disadvantaged communities often lack the resources to properly monitor or treat these threats. The state should dedicate emerging contaminant resources to monitor for and treat water contaminated by emerging contaminants in disadvantaged communities, and especially in rural communities served by domestic wells and state small water systems to ensure funding is equitably allocated. Additionally, technical assistance funding is exponentially higher for disadvantaged communities compared to non-disadvantaged communities. This highlights the importance of technical assistance and how difficult it can be for communities to fully fund critical projects through one source alone. It underscores the need for streamlined, accessible funding mechanisms that reduce barriers and delays for access to clean and safe water. In conclusion, this data shows both progress and gaps. Ensuring equitable access to clean, safe water means not only prioritizing disadvantaged communities in funding, but also making sure they're not left behind when it comes to newer, potentially harmful contaminants. We must continue to push for targeted support that reflects both current and emerging needs in these communities. I recommend the board prioritize emerging contaminants funding for disadvantaged and rural communities, especially those relying on domestic wells and small water systems. It's also clear that continued investment in technical assistance is essential to help these communities complete critical projects. And finally, we need to streamline multiple source funding access so communities aren't delayed in getting the safe, clean drinking water they deserve. I appreciate the opportunity to comment and contribute to the discussion surrounding funding for drinking water projects and will be available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Garcia. I appreciate the analysis that was done. Look forward to actually diving down into that as well. And just note that I know when it comes to the emerging contaminants pot, because of a lot of the federal crosscutters, I know we've prioritized a lot of the state dollars for communities because it's easier to get through the process. And know that on the emerging contaminants pot, there has been some dedicated funding, I know, for testing around PFAS particularly. But comments well received, and really do appreciate the analysis, continued partnership across the work. It's really appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up Evelyn Wendell, be followed by Isabel Solorio, and then Michael Claiborne.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Likewise. Hi, my name is Evelyn Wendell, the founding director of WeTap.org, which is focused on improving awareness, access and use of public drinking fountains and hydration stations, and supporting the narrative about our excellent publicly supplied drinking water, which most of California has. Lucky us. I first want to sincerely thank the entire board and Board Member McGuire and Chair Esquivel for your supporting our ongoing efforts to support you and the excellent management and implementation of our many elaborate and thorough safety protections. My heart recognizes how hard your work is for you and your entire team, and I feel like we all in California have the intrinsic, essential backup to live healthy lives, and for me personally to do WeTap's work to help reduce waste and improve public health and support our public drinking water systems. Thank goodness for the water boards. Keep up the good fight. The use of publicly supplied drinking water not only leads and maintains environmental sustainability and resiliency, but helps eliminate economic disparities caused when people feel they need to buy bottled water. We know we can trust our public drinking water systems, and bottled water is truly unnecessary. For Tap Water Day 2025, which is May 1st this year, WeTap is working closely again with Metropolitan Water District to share social media posts through their own website and the MWD network of 26 agencies to provide teacher toolkits about drinking water, that can be used all year that have been vetted by MWD. We are sharing creative materials, bookmarks, posters, flyers, along with age-appropriate teacher toolkits to help bridge this trust gap. A realistic and clear, publicly supplied drinking water understanding needs to grow as we grow. We are making steady progress. Please visit our WeTap.org website. It will have all these outreach materials within the next week. One step at a time does add up to progress. So thank you again, sincerely.
Sincere thanks back to you, Ms. Wendell. I really appreciate your continued advocacy and work here to make sure that we continue to promote all the investment that's put into our drinking water systems. And even though we know we have communities without access to clean water, and we're focused in making sure that we have that level of access, equitable access for all communities, the fact that 98% of Californians do have access to clean and safe water means that they can trust their tap, and to your point, should really be relying on it primarily. So really appreciate your great advocacy and work. Glad to be partners and look forward to the continued work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up Isabel Solorio, be followed by Michael Claiborne, and then Leslie Martinez.
Is there translation or should I do it?
Apologies. We do have actually a translator here in the room. We didn't have it for public forum. It's for one of our other forums, but glad to provide it. So thank you. Thank you for stepping in.
Sí, claro. Claro, claro, claro. Buenos días a la Mesa Estatal del Agua. Mi nombre es Isabel Solorio.
Good morning to the State Water Board. My name is Isabel Solorio.
Vengo de la comunidad de Lanare.
I'm here from Lanier community.
Estoy aquí para pedir a la mesa,
And I'm here to ask the board,
por favor, nos escuchen y nos ayuden
please hear us, please help us
a encontrar una solución y a conciliar
help us find a solution and to consolidate
el sistema de agua de Lanier.
the Lanier water system.
Necesitamos una solución a largo plazo,
We need a long-term solution
porque hemos estado tratando de todo y estamos en el mismo lugar.
This because we've tried everything and we're in the same place we've always been.
Nuestra agua está en peligro económico y público.
Our water is at risk, both economic and public.
Hemos estado en el recibidor aproximadamente 14 años.
We've been in this location or in this situation approximately 14 years.
Y esperando que se ponga esto mejor.
And we've been waiting to see an improvement.
Soy miembro del grupo de SAFER.
I'm a member of our SAFER program.
Ayudo como secretaria al CSD.
And I'm the CSD secretary.
So, esto todo lo hago para apoyar mi comunidad. Quiero que mi comunidad esté segura, que tenga agua limpia, segura y asequible.
And I do this with full intention of just helping my community. I want my community to have access to clean, affordable, and safe drinking water.
La comunidad que está cerca de nuestra comunidad está a menos de 3 millas.
The nearest community next to ours is just about 3 miles away.
Creo que eso sería una buena solución debido a que si consolidaran los sistemas,
And I feel that there would be a great solution if we were to consolidate these systems.
funcionaría mejor para nosotros.
It would work better for us.
Se hace un sistema más fuerte,
We would have a stronger system.
se comparten los gastos
The costs could be shared.
y sería incluso mejor para lo que es la mesa estatal, porque ustedes saben, se hacen reportes estatales, reportes locales. Es mucho dinero que se tiene que estar usando.
And it would be even better or benefit to you as a state board. As you know, there are reports, there are expenses that have to be made on a monthly, even annual basis, and it would be a cost savings even to you.
So, espero de su ayuda. Es muy importante para nuestra comunidad, para que esta comunidad de gente trabajadora agrícola tenga agua limpia, segura y accesible.
And so I hope we can expect and count on your support. It would be a tremendous support for our community, our ag worker community, people who are hardworking so they can have access to clean, affordable, and safe drinking water.
Muchas gracias por su tiempo.
Thank you so much for your time.
Y gracias a ti, señora Solorio, por tu voz y tiempo también. Gracias.
Es un placer.
Gracias.
A pleasure.
Next, I'd like to call Michael Claiborne, be followed by Leslie Martinez, and then I believe our last commenter this morning is Ricardo Ortega. Well, actually, apologies, Ricardo Ortega, and then Cynthia Cortez.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel, and to the board. My name is Michael Claiborne. I'm a directing attorney with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. And we are here with Isabel Solorio. We represent Lanier CSD in a few different contexts, drinking water consolidation negotiations with Riverdale PUD, as well as wastewater extension of service negotiations also with Riverdale, and then also represent Lanier CSD in the ongoing receivership action in Fresno Superior Court. And then we also receive technical assistance funding for the wastewater project, not for the drinking water project, which we're here today on. So I'm here today, as I said, with Isabel Solorio, and we're asking for the state board's assistance. What Lanier CSD is asking for is for the board's help in moving forward the drinking water and wastewater consolidation projects with Riverdale PUD. And more specifically, I think what is needed at this juncture is for the board to issue a letter pursuant to Health and Safety Code 116682 to direct the parties to negotiate for 6 months. I think that negotiation will be successful in my view, but without that letter, I think we're at an impasse. So to back up a little bit and provide some background, Lanier has had a long, lengthy history of both water quality and governance problems. In 2007, with CDBG funding, Lanier CSD installed an arsenic treatment plant to address an arsenic MCL violation. They were only able to operate that plant for about 6 months before they had to shut it down because they couldn't afford the O&M associated with that plant. The system ended up about $100,000 in debt in operating that plant for 6 months. And ultimately, the Department of Public Health petitioned for the system to be placed in receivership in 2010, partly due to that debt, partly due to ongoing governance problems, and partly due to the arsenic MCL violation. Fresno Superior Court in 2010 did grant that petition, and so the water system was in receivership and remains in receivership today, about 15 years later. The State Water Board is the successor in interest to the Department of Public Health in that proceeding and is represented by the Attorney General's office. So then in 2013, there was a feasibility study looking at what to do with this drinking water system and address the arsenic issue. The feasibility study from 2013 says that consolidation looks like the most feasible option with Riverdale, except that Riverdale at the time was opposed to that consolidation. If people remember, that was pre-SB 88, so the state board didn't have the authority to order that consolidation at the time, so didn't move forward with that and instead funded 2 new wells. Those wells were installed in 2019 and addressed the arsenic problem. One of those wells, though, had to be shut down very soon thereafter because of a benzene problem. So they're now back to having one active source. It is meeting drinking water standards, at least primary standards. There are some secondary issues, but at least there's no arsenic in that one well. Then in 2022, Senator Lina Gonzalez authored SB 403, a bill that we sponsored, which allowed the board to mandate consolidation where one system is at risk of failing. The reasoning there being that the state board should act more proactively to address problems before they arise in systems like Lanier that are at risk because of things like only relying on one source and being in receivership. Then in the last 2 years with state board TA funding, 2 feasibility studies have been completed, one for wastewater consolidation, one for drinking water consolidation. They conclude that both consolidation projects are feasible and have cost estimates for both projects. Lanier desperately needs a solution here and has been engaging with Riverdale PUD for years now. In February, Riverdale PUD, in a letter to the state board, the regional board actually, took the position that it's opposed to both drinking water and wastewater consolidation. So that brings us to the impasse. that I think we're in, which is I don't think that the local conversations are going to progress without some indication that the state board's serious about potentially mandating consolidation here by issuing that 6-month letter. We're also in conversations with the regional board, which has SB 1215 authority to mandate extension of wastewater service. And we think because both projects are at the same juncture, they both have feasibility studies, we're talking about potential engagement from both the state and the regional agency. We can potentially move both projects forward at the same time, resulting in cost savings and efficiency, which is something we think makes a lot of sense. Lanier desperately needs the state board's assistance here, and we ask for action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Claiborne. Really appreciate the work and advocacy here with the community, and look forward to what I know will be follow-up steps here. Next, I'd like to call up Leslie Martinez.
Hi, Leslie Martinez, Community Advocacy Manager with Leadership Council, and I've had the privilege and honor of working alongside folks in Lanier for over 8 years to secure a long-term drinking water and wastewater solutions. Isabel Solorio wanted me to make sure I say that wastewater is also very important to her community. She forgot to say that in her comment. In 2013, Ann Bellows did a history of Lanier for those that are unfamiliar with the history. And there's always been this one line that really gets me, but it says, "The community's existence, however, is far from accidental. Rather, the community of Lanier represents the determination of farm workers and other low-income families to carve out a toehold in a landscape that was made mostly unavailable to them." And I think that's what we're here. That's why I'm here today. I've worked with folks. I talk to tenants on the regular. I'm out in the 100 degrees with Isabel knocking on doors, talking to residents, and their number one priority has and will continue to be water and wastewater services. Another part that's really important, and one of the previous speakers was talking about housing. Lanier is a place for farm workers. It works for them. It's close to all of the work that's out there. People need to live out there. And unfortunately, there is no development that could come into this community and save people who are living in homes that are not connected to sewers, to septic tanks, people that are not connected to water tanks. These are people, we don't know, I mean, we kind of know where the sewage is going, but this is what it's like to live in this community. And I think we're past the niceties. I think it's really time that we show that public health is important, and the community of Lanier that has been fought for safer and has fought for so many other laws to ensure that everybody has access to clean drinking water and affordable drinking water. And I think the time is now to really show that we stand with the residents, not just of Lanier, but of Fresno County, that we are going to ensure that they have the services that we all deserve. Because in the words of Isabel, these are not luxuries that we have. These are basic human rights, and we should be able to provide for everybody in this state, not just a few. So please urging for action, and excited to work with you all, really. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you as well. Really appreciate the incredible work and continued advocacy and representation here of the community, Ms. Martinez. Thank you. Okay, next I'd like to call up Ricardo Ortega. We followed by our last commenter, Cynthia Cortez. Good morning, Mr. Ortega. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Esquivel and members McGuire and Diadamo for the opportunity to speak. Rick Ortega here on the behalf of the 23 GSAs in the Delta Mendota Subbasin. As you're being briefed on the State Board's SGMA process, the Delta Mendota GSAs would like to express how proud we are for how far we've come in our efforts to develop and implement a single coordinated GSP consistent with the requirements of SGMA, and that is designed to achieve sustainability in our complex and diverse subbasin. Working closely over the course of 1 year, we've developed and adopted a comprehensive single GSP covering the entire 750,000 acre subbasin that was submitted to the State Board in July of 2024. We've conducted extensive outreach and engagement. We've committed to maintaining groundwater elevations at or above 2015 levels, the SGMA gold standard, and continuing to actively implement projects and management actions, including pumping reduction and well mitigation plans to achieve our sustainability goals. The Delta Mendota GSAs are committed to continued collaboration with the State Board to ensure continued management of our groundwater basin under local control, consistent with a key principle of SGMA. We have enjoyed a productive working relationship with the State Board staff and remain confident that through ongoing dialogue and collaboration, we will meet the sustainability goals outlined in our GSP. We also remain committed to robust interbasin and intrabasin coordination, recognizing that some challenges faced by this subbasin can only be addressed through regional cooperation and coordination. Thank you for your time and look forward to further opportunities to discuss our GSP.
Thank you as well. Much appreciated, Mr. Ortega. Now I'd like to call up our final public commenter, Cynthia Cortez.
Can you hear me?
We can. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Escobar and members of the board. My name is Cynthia Cortez. I'm the Policy Program Manager for Restore the Delta. I would like to address today the response from the Deputy Director, Division of Water Rights, to the protestants' motion to cancel the water rights hearing for the Delta Conveyance Project that is before the Water Board's Administrative Hearing Office. The Department of Water Resources has not presented a good cause for failing to present the supplemental information that has been requested. The Deputy Director's response does not recognize that this information was initially requested from DWR in 2010 by our partners at California Sports Fishing Protection Alliance. That information was never received from that request. So, we just question how can the board justify granting additional time to DWR when they were unable to develop necessary supplemental information in the last 15 years. I don't think an additional month or two would make that difference, and I don't think that's fair for protestants and for communities that will be impacted by this project. So this is unacceptable. I will also remind the board that it is imperative that the board sign a resolution to the Title VI complaint that is robust and addresses the significant water quality impacts that particularly tribes and communities of color face in the Delta, and to prevent and this is very important, to prevent destructive projects and policies from moving forward that are being considered both by DWR and the board. And I will again remind the board that you have the opportunity to take action on resolving that Title VI complaint today. So once again, I want to thank you for your time and the opportunity to comment today. Thank you.
Thank you as well, Ms. Cortez. Appreciate your addressing the board this morning. Appreciate all public forum commenters and elevating issues here to the board. Really appreciate the engagement and look forward to follow up on the number of things that we heard. And again, appreciate folks coming here to the board. All right, that wraps public forum and then brings us to our first item of board business, which is consideration of adoption of the April 2nd board meeting minutes. As we consider that, I did want to acknowledge Board Member Firestone and Board Member Morgan are on the virtual platform here with us as well. But on the board meeting minutes, if there's any discussion, and then otherwise, I think we're ready for a motion.
I'll move to adopt the April 2nd minutes.
Second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call roll call vote?
Board Member McGuire?
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo?
Aye.
Board Member Firestone?
Aye.
Board Member Morgan?
Aye.
Chair Escobar?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. That brings us now to our tranche of uncontested items, items number 2 through 4. First and foremost, thank you to all the work that's gone into these items from folks. Really appreciative. The fact that we have no commenters and they're uncontested means you've done a really good job on them. Looking to fellow board colleagues if there's any items they'd like to pull, but then otherwise we may be ready for a motion.
Yes, I'm going to move to adopt item 2, and then also item 3 with the change sheet and item 4 with the change sheet.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call roll call vote?
Board Member McGuire?
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo?
Aye.
Board Member Firestone?
Aye.
Board Member Morgan?
Aye.
Chair Escobar?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. The vote is unanimous, and the 3 items are adopted. Appreciate again all the good work that has gone into them. That now brings us to item number 5, which is an informational item and update on implementation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And as folks here gather up, we'll make some announcements around our interpretation services this morning. So our next item is an update on implementation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. We are providing Spanish and Punjabi language interpretation services for this item, including the simultaneous broadcasting of this meeting in Spanish and Punjabi. I believe that was supposed to be on slide 1. Slide 2, if you are present in the meeting room and require Spanish or Punjabi interpretation services, headsets are available at the table just outside this room. The hearing room is equipped with screens on either side of the room here that are displaying translated materials in Spanish and Punjabi. Slide 3, for Zoom participants to listen or comment in English, Spanish, or Punjabi, select the language interpretation channel by clicking on the globe icon in the meeting controls at the bottom of your screen. Choose English, Spanish, or Punjabi as your language and mute original audio. On slide 4, for Zoom participants to see the presentation in English, Spanish, or Punjabi, click on View Options at the top of your screen. Select Presentation in English to see the presentation in English, Presentación en Español to see this presentation in Spanish, and then Presentation in Punjabi to see the presentation in Punjabi. I will now invite our interpreters to share these instructions in Spanish and Punjabi to everyone and to help get them set up. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you. Chair Esquivel will provide these instructions first for the benefit of our Spanish-speaking audience. Muy buenos días. Si usted se presenta o si está aquí presente en la sala, sepa que tenemos dispositivos auriculares para poder escuchar el programa en su idioma. Si necesita una, por favor, diríjase a la mesa fuera de esta sala y le podremos conseguir una. Si usted está asistiendo por medio de la plataforma Zoom, por favor, busque en la parte inferior de su pantalla un icono de un globo terráqueo que dice Interpretation o Interpretación. Selecciónelo y de ahí seleccione su idioma Spanish o español y podrá escuchar el programa enteramente en su idioma. También puede ver la presentación en español por dirigirse a la parte superior de su pantalla y buscar el botón que dice Presentación Español. Muchísimas gracias, aquí para servirle. And now we'll hear those instructions for the benefit of our Punjabi speaking audience.
ਆਡੀਅנס 'ਚ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਣ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਸਟਰਕਸ਼ਨਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਟੇਬਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਬਾਹਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਵਿਜ਼ਿਟ ਕਰੋ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੋਈ ਟੈਕਨੀਕਲ ਜਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਦੁਸ਼ਵਾਰੀ ਪੇਸ਼ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਸਲਾ ਪੇਸ਼ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹੈਡਸੈਟ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਆਈਕਨ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰੋ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਕਿ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦਾ ਚੈਨਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚੂਜ਼ ਕਰੋ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਓਰੀਜਨਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੋਗੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਿਊਟ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਲਾਈਡਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਟੌਪ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਟੌਪ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਦੇਖੋ ਉੱਥੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੈਜੈਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰੋ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਪ੍ਰੈਜੈਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆਣੀ ਸੁਣਨਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਆਉਣ ਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ Thank you.
Thank you both. Really appreciative of the interpretation services here. And just as a reminder for folks, because we do have interpretation ongoing, please do try to speak slowly and clearly just so that folks are able to catch up. Also, if you are intending on commenting on this item, please do sign up by either scanning the QR code at the side of the room or you can sign up at the laptop as well. But if you're having any issues, please do just speak directly to the clerk of the board and we can help make sure you're signed up here to speak. With that, I'd like to hand it over to folks here. Just want to thank and acknowledge Sir Paul Gosselin here from the Department of Water Resources. Really appreciate your attendance with us. And we'll hand it over to Natalie Stork. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. I'm Natalie Stork, the Director of the Office of Sustainable Groundwater Management. And I'm joined today by Brianna St. Pierre, Assistant Director for the office, Amanda Howering, Engineering Geologist, Eric Holmes, Analyst, both of them with our office, as well as Paul Gosselin, Director of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Office at the Department of Water Resources, and Amanda Pearson of the board's Office of Chief Counsel. We're excited to present an update for you today on SGMA implementation and the status of the 7 basins referred to the State Water Board. And now Eric will start the presentation. Next slide, please.
For today's presentation, we will be discussing Sigma basics and state intervention, basin status, basin progress including common themes, recent updates to gears with an overview of fees, and emerging issues. Next slide, please. Groundwater is a critical component of California's water budget, with 80% of Californians relying on groundwater for part of their water supply. In particular, regions in the Central Valley depend on groundwater for anywhere from a third to over half of their annual water budget. However, the extent to which Californians rely on groundwater fluctuates in response to consecutive wet or dry years. Next slide, please. As a result of long-term drought conditions and aquifer overdraft, there is an overall downward trend in groundwater levels in the Central Valley over the past 20 years. While a few groundwater monitoring locations show increases in groundwater levels within the last 5 years, the general downward trend continues in critically overdrafted basins. Next slide, please. To address or avoid the overconsumption of groundwater in medium, high, and critically overdrafted subbasins, SGMA requires groundwater sustainability agencies, or GSAs, to create groundwater sustainability plans, or GSPs, that clearly define key groundwater issues in the subbasin and strategies to correct them. Submit annual reports that demonstrate GSA progress towards achieving sustainability goals. Periodically evaluate GSPs to adaptively manage and improve corrective strategies in the subbasin, and achieve basin sustainability goals in 20 years such that a diverse and reliable water portfolio is available for future generations. Next slide, please. As defined by statute, sustainability is when a subbasin operates within its sustainable yield and is not experiencing undesirable results. Undesirable results are the significant and unreasonable occurrences of these 6 indicators caused by groundwater conditions in the basin. For example, groundwater level decline occurs when the water table is lowered, primarily through pumping. Land subsidence is a gradual settling or sudden sinking of the Earth's crust or surface due to subsurface extraction of natural resources such as groundwater, oil, and natural gas. Groundwater quality can degrade as contaminated groundwater falls closer to well intakes and from a physical environment that is changing due to land subsidence. Local agencies working at the local level will define what is significant and unreasonable in their GSPs. Next slide, please. If local management is not successful, the state needs to step in to protect groundwater resources until those GSAs are able to manage the basin. Next slide, please. If GSAs are unwilling or unable to sustainably manage groundwater in their basin, the board may step in to manage the basin in a process called state intervention or the board backstop. Some things to remember about state intervention are that the board will only intervene when local efforts fail. State intervention temporarily protects the basin until locals come up to speed, but it is not meant to be a replacement for local management under a GSP. And lastly, state intervention is triggered by SGMA deadlines and deficiencies. Next slide, please. This flow chart outlines the process for GSP review under SGMA. The responsibility of SGMA implementation oversight is divided between the Department of Water Resources, or DWR, and the State Water Board. DWR conducts initial and periodic evaluation of GSPs as well as managing GSP and GSA information. Once a GSA or group of GSAs adopts and implements a GSP, DWR has 2 years to evaluate it. If the plan is approved, GSAs implement the plan and submit annual reports to DWR. If DWR determines the plan to be inadequate to achieve sustainability, the State Water Board's role under SGMA is triggered. State intervention may end if the State Water Board determines that GSAs have corrected deficiencies. The State Water Board is charged with reviewing DWR's inadequate subbasin GSPs and determining if a probationary designation is necessary. Board staff evaluates the inadequate plans and may prepare a staff report that summarizes and recommends potential actions to remedy board and DWR identified deficiencies. If deficiencies are not corrected, the board may hold a probationary hearing to determine if probation is warranted for the subbasin. The steps on the timeline that are highlighted in blue are discretionary steps that the board may take. In these steps, if the board does not proceed to the following stage, then the basin is awaiting action from the board, which may be to return to DWR oversight. Next slide, please. If the board adopts a probationary determination, this starts the first step of state intervention. During the probationary period, GSAs should work to correct the deficiencies in their plans that were identified by the board. Additionally, during probation, many groundwater extractors are required to record and report their groundwater extractions to the board and pay fees based on the amount they pump. If the deficiencies are not corrected after 1 year on probation, the board may choose to move the basin towards the second step of state intervention. In this step, the board would develop an interim plan to manage groundwater on a temporary basis while GSAs continue to correct deficiencies in their GSPs. The board would provide an opportunity for public review and input on the draft interim plan. The board would then hold a public hearing to consider adopting the interim plan. Next slide, please. This map displays information on the status of basins that are subject to state intervention by the State Water Board as of today. On March 2nd, 2023, DWR determined that the revised GSPs for 6 of the critically overdrafted groundwater basins were inadequate. Those basins are Tulare Lake, Tule, Kern County, Cahuilla, Chowchilla, and Delta Mendota. More recently, in February 2025, DWR determined that Pleasant Valley Subbasin in Fresno County has an inadequate GSP. This subbasin followed the others by about 2 years because there is a difference of 2 years for SGMA implementation for non-critically overdrafted subbasins. Next slide, please. Looking back at the flow chart from earlier, board staff evaluated more than 84 GSPs in the last 2 years for the 6 basins DWR initially referred to the Water Board. It is worth noting that Pleasant Valley is not discussed in the remainder of this presentation because that basin only recently came under the Water Board's purview. Going back to the original 6, board staff developed 4 draft staff reports, 3 final staff reports, and held 8 public workshops across the Tulare Lake, Tule, Kern, and Cahuilla subbasins. Next slide, please. Input from the staff reports and public workshops supported decision-making during the Tulare Lake, Tule, and Kern County probationary hearings, resulting in the probationary designation of the Tulare Lake and Tule subbasins. Now we'll give an overview of the status of the 6 critically overdrafted basins. Next slide, please. On April 16th, 2024, the board put the Tulare Lake subbasin under probation. All actions related to the Tulare Lake probationary designation are currently suspended due to ongoing litigation. Next slide, please. On September 17th, 2024, the board put the Tule subbasin under probation. Over the last year, staff has been meeting with GSAs to discuss fixing deficiencies and to review the 5 new GSAs and 3 new GSPs. Non-exempt extractors began measuring extractions on January 1st, 2025. Staff is looking into tracking implementation of GSA management actions, and planning has begun on an effort to support extractors with submitting their first reports, which are due February 1st, 2026. Next slide, please. The adopted 2024 Delta Mendota GSP shows significant progress towards sustainability and coordination. Staff is continuing to coordinate with the GSAs regarding remaining concerns identified in the updated GSP. Staff expects to produce a recommendation to the board in late 2025. Next slide, please. The recently updated 2025 Chowchilla GSP shows significant progress towards protecting drinking water users and slowing subsidence. Staff is continuing to coordinate with the GSAs, and a recommendation to the board will likely be released this spring. Next slide, please. The board is set to continue the Kern County probationary hearing on September 17th, 2025. Staff is reviewing GSA outreach and engagement plans, proposals for GSA monitoring networks, and well mitigation plans for groundwater quality and levels. A revised GSP is due to board staff on June 20th, 2025. Next slide, please. The Kauai probationary hearing, originally set for January 7th, 2025, was canceled. Staff is reviewing the amended 2024 GSPs, which show significant progress towards sustainability. A potential board action is anticipated this summer. Next slide, and I will now hand the presentation over to Brianna.
Thank you, Eric. We're now going to shift from a background and basin by basin look to kind of a high-level overview. The basins are all managed by multiple groundwater sustainability agencies and, in many cases, under multiple groundwater sustainability plans. This adds complexity for groundwater sustainability agencies developing basin-wide descriptions of water budgets and sustainability goals. More complex basin governance also adds to staff workload. When we review multiple GSPs, it functionally takes more time, and staff must confirm plans are coordinated. Scheduling and discussing material in meetings with many GSA representatives can also require additional time. In some basins where trust is low, GSAs are splitting up or creating their own plans. Next slide, please. Groundwater makes up more than 40% of the water portfolio for 5 of the basins, elevating the risks of groundwater mismanagement for the people and economies of these basins. In dry years, groundwater becomes even more important to meet the needs of the basins. Next slide, please. In all 6 basins, the agricultural sector represents by far the largest user of groundwater. Decades-long trends towards planting permanent tree crops over annual crops that can be fallowed reduce basins' flexibility and reducing water use in dry years. This makes groundwater even more important for agriculture in dry years. If long-term overdraft continues, growers may lose this water supply, especially as droughts are projected to become more intense. Next slide, please. The agriculture sector, however, is not uniform. Long-term trends in land consolidation in the San Joaquin Valley mean that a relatively small number of landowners make up most of the irrigated land in the 6 basins. The basins are also home to a large number of smaller producers. Larger growers may have more flexibility to adapt to allocations or GSA fees. Smaller growers may have more trouble keeping up with decision-making processes and new requirements. For example, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, only 84% of farms in Tulare County had access to the internet in 2022. Next slide, please. The GSP's Water Board staff reviewed needed to address similar deficiencies. For example, all needed to address groundwater level decline, groundwater storage reduction, and land subsidence. However, because all the basins Water Board staff needs to review are in the Southern Central Valley, seawater intrusion isn't an issue that needs to be addressed. Next slide, please. Now we want to take some time to highlight some areas where GSAs are doing well. In the Kern Subbasin, the West Side District Water Authority, GSA, contains a portion of the California Aqueduct, which has historically been impacted by subsidence. The subsidence is likely driven by both GSA and non-GSA factors. The GSA has implemented several features to minimize future subsidence. All wells within the GSA must be registered and equipped with a flow meter. De minimis wells are excluded from metering requirements. The GSA established a monitoring corridor that extends 2.5 miles from either side of the California Aqueduct. In this monitoring corridor, no new wells are allowed except replacement wells and de minimis wells, and most extractions are prohibited. The extractions that are allowed must be reported to the GSA. The GSA also commits to continue working with California Aqueduct Subsidence Program and other beneficial users to minimize the impacts to the aqueduct. Next slide, please. In the Chowchilla Subbasin, Triangle T Water District has taken actions to address lower aquifer pumping in western Chowchilla, which has caused subsidence impacts to infrastructure within adjacent Delta Mendota Subbasin. These actions include the Triangle T Water District GSA landowners forming an agreement for roughly 14,000 acre-feet per year with surface water purveyors in Delta Mendota to stop subsidence impacts, encourage recharge, and allow a transition to upper aquifer pumping for irrigation demand. Triangle T Water District GSA landowners agree to limit lower aquifer pumping to an estimated safe yield of 0.5 acre-foot per acre. Next slide, please. In developing the Cahuilla Basin's well impact mitigation programs, the GSAs hosted multiple public meetings to receive feedback on the mitigation program, developed an alert system to notify well users of potential impacts, and are providing communications in multiple languages. The programs include a $5.8 million annual budget fully funded by the GSAs to fund mitigation for drinking water well impacts, groundwater quality impacts, and critical infrastructure impacts due to groundwater pumping and management. This well mitigation is implemented in partnership with self-help enterprises. Commitments include 24-hour emergency bottled water service and 72-hour tanked water service if a domestic well is impacted. The programs consider both short-term water supply needs and options for longer-term solutions, including deepening wells, drilling a new well, or connecting households to nearby water systems. Next slide, please. In the lead up to probationary hearings, staff engaged residents, agriculture producers, drinking water systems, and others in the decision-making process. Staff conducted outreach, held workshops in the basins and online, and met with community-based organizations, water managers, and others. Staff learned a lot about effective SGMA engagement since noticing the Tulare Lake probationary hearing. Some water users were less aware about SGMA than we expected. We heard concerns that some impacted groups were not informed about SGMA during early stages of implementation as GSAs formed and developed plans. Staff keeps this in mind when developing letters, notices, and workshop materials. Staff also coordinated an informational session in Visalia toward Punjabi American growers. The board expanded language services for SGMA engagement and now regularly offers translation and interpretation services in Punjabi and Spanish. Staff increased efforts to ground truth linguistic data through consultation with community-based organizations and others. Community members shared concerns that some residents are uncomfortable sharing their perspectives with staff and board members when major local employers are in the room. Staff offers virtual workshops and hearings and opportunities to share more private comments at workshops. Groundwater users also shared they believe the fee burden from both board fees and GSA fees in probation is too high for their operations, and that fees may create challenges for small producers in particular. Staff is exploring options to address challenges for smaller growers, and we will discuss that effort more in a moment. Staff also received feedback that in many basins, GSAs are missing some communities and interested parties in their outreach, and we'll discuss that more in the next slide. Next slide, please. GSAs must describe in their plans how the GSAs encourage the active involvement of diverse social, cultural, and economic elements of the population within the basin. GSAs must also consider all beneficial uses and users in developing their plans. In staff's review of plans and interactions with different user groups within the basins, staff notes gaps in some GSAs' outreach and engagement efforts. Staff recommends GSAs take extra effort to establish relationships with smaller ag producers, people with language needs, domestic well users and others reliant on groundwater for drinking water, wetlands managers, and California Native American tribes. The Department of Water Resources developed a guidance document in 2018 specifically for GSAs describing best practices for engaging with tribal governments. Next slide, please. GSAs are developing mitigation plans to protect drinking water wells as they work towards sustainable groundwater management. Mitigation plans are supplemental to GSPs and are intended to support those who do not have access to drinking water due to groundwater overdraft. Mitigation plans do not replace management activities. However, mitigation plans are a practical solution to protect vulnerable communities as agencies work towards sustainability. We want to make sure mitigation plans are feasible and effective in avoiding harm caused by undesirable results, in concert with the physical criteria in the groundwater sustainability plans. When board staff review these plans, some positive components stand out. Some agencies are conducting community outreach to inform people about the program and are making materials available in several languages if there are other language needs within the basin. Some agencies developed a funding mechanism that can sustain the mitigation plan based on the number of wells projected to be impacted by groundwater overdraft. State Water Board staff acknowledges that other mitigation programs exist, and it may be important for GSAs to coordinate with other regulatory programs both at the local and state level. Some agencies commit to fast turnaround for emergency and interim supplies for affected households and developed easy-to-use claim processes. And some agencies are mitigating for water quality impacts in addition to impacts from chronic lowering of groundwater levels and subsidence to ensure that people retain access to safe drinking water. Next slide, please. GSAs for all the basins now include some degree of well impact mitigation for drinking water impacts the plans anticipate before 2040. Many of the GSA's plans have evolved substantially on these 5 points through conversations with board staff and non-governmental organizations. Although GSAs are not responsible for all well failures in a basin, the most successful programs anticipate problem areas, advertise programs broadly, provide timely and comprehensive help, and simplify applications and other administrative processes. And now I'll turn it over to Amanda. Next slide, please.
Thank you. The board is not required to put basins in probation. If it does designate a basin as probationary, people who continue extracting from the basin will need to report their extractions and pay fees. The board may require meters and may use the information it collects from reports in developing an interim plan. This is also a time when the local agency or agencies can fix their GSP issues before going under an interim plan. Next slide, please. We also want to highlight tools staff developed to assist in the reporting process. When a subbasin is unmanaged or gets put under probation, groundwater extractors will need to report in GEARS. GEARS stands for the Groundwater Extraction Annual Reporting System, and it's an easy-to-use online data system that board staff built for collecting required data. Extractors directed to GEARS should register an account and begin reporting or use the quick reporting wizard to determine if they meet reporting requirements. For extractors required to report, they will use this platform to add their wells and file their annual electronic extraction reports. Next slide, please. For extractors that are unsure if they need to report, board staff developed the Quick Reporting Wizard. The Quick Reporting Wizard is a new enhancement developed to help extractors who are either incorrectly contacted or may fall into a different category of pumping that is not required to report. For example, if an extractor receives a notice for a parcel they no longer own, a well that is destroyed, or are de minimis, meaning they pump less than 2 acre-feet per year for domestic purposes only, they would not need to register an account and report in GEARS. The wizard is a quick way for them to let us know that they do not fall under the reporting requirements, remove themselves from the contact list, and receive a confirmation number for the information they've provided. Next slide, please. De minimis extractors are not required to file extraction reports or register accounts. To assist extractors in determining if they are de minimis, board staff developed a de minimis calculator within the Quick Reporting Wizard, which allows a user to select their property or properties and calculate their estimated water use using evapotranspiration, precipitation, parcel, number of households served, and the user's estimated % of groundwater use. Next slide. Once the extractor has successfully submitted the requested information, an estimated extraction total is provided, and GEARS makes a recommendation that the user may take into consideration when determining their reporting type. Next slide, please. Extractors who do not meet the de minimis extractor definition must register and report their wells and groundwater extractions in GEARS. To begin reporting, extractors must locate their wells, provide required well information, and define the parcels where the water from the well is being used. Next slide, please. After an extractor added their wells and the water year is complete, they may file their annual extraction report. Extraction information is required to be entered by month in units of acre-feet
and submitted after the end of the water year prior to February 1st of the following year, unless the board changes the reporting deadline. Additionally, extractors are required to identify their measurement method. After the extraction report is submitted, the extractor will receive a confirmation, a PDF of their extraction report, and a follow-up invoice via mail with instructions on how to pay the fees. Next slide, please. Additional enhancements board staff have incorporated into GEARS are the ability to track the responses of the potential groundwater extractors in 2 probationary basins and 1 unmanaged basins who are mailed notices, though, as we mentioned earlier, all actions related to the Tulare Lake probationary designation are suspended. Translating the GEARS quick reporting wizard and making it easily accessible for Spanish speakers. A maintenance window and a banner to notify users of upcoming updates or timed outages. Continually enhancing GEARS to address frequent issues encountered by the public, and adding the GSA user account to allow GSAs the option to report on behalf of extractors within the basin. Next slide, please. Additional upgrades underway include translating the GEARS quick reporting wizard in additional languages, making it easier for a user to report if they want to use evapotranspiration data, creating public-facing user guides and videos available in multiple languages, adding functionality that allows required extractors to request access to GEARS who are not mailed the notice, further enhancing compliance tracking, and releasing fee waiver guidance. I will now hand the presentation back to Brianna. Next slide.
Thank you, Amanda. Annual extraction fees include a per well fee and an additional volumetric fee. For extractors in probationary basins, fees are currently $300 per well and $20 per acre foot. Next slide, please. Some exceptions to fees exist. Households that use less than 2 acre-feet of water for domestic purposes only do not need to report or pay fees. Some types of extractors still must report, but they may request the board waive their fees. Board staff is in the early stages of evaluating possible additional exclusions from reporting and fees in Thule for other categories. We're still working on that. Additional information should be coming out very soon, so stay tuned. Next slide, please. It's important to note that fees typically won't be collected until over 1 year following the probationary determination. For example, the board determined the Thule subbasin as probationary in September 2024. Pumpers needed to start recording extractions starting January 1st, 2025, with reports due February 1st, 2026, and fees aren't due until April 1st, 2026, which is more than 1 year after the probationary designation, more than 2 years following staff releasing the draft staff report and the notice for the probationary hearing, and more than 3 years following DWR's inadequate determination. Next slide, please. As we shift from a focus on GSP review to probation and developing interim plans and implementation, we also want to highlight some emerging issues. We noted the issues common in the GSP review and the effort on developing recommendations regarding exclusions for reporting or probation. We are also looking to incorporate elements of the GSPs into the development of interim plans, and staff is also facing the added challenge of implementation. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time, and we're going to pass it over to Paul for some additional updates, but don't leave this slide.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, board members, Paul Goslin, Deputy Director at DWR for Sustainable Water Management. I was kind of really struck and amazed by the presentation from the board, and it really brought home the notion that this is no longer a linear process. And we've been saying that we're in the implementation phase, and one of the things that we've been living through is the unique nature of this law, where the two agencies have been working together for 10 years now, and it was a unique compromise that made the law happen. Could have gone a lot of different ways, but it's actually worked and worked well because of our unique strengths and differences, and it made the law better. And it really shows through this process, through the process we went, where we determined some basins inadequate, and that process worked. And now your process anticipating basins coming back at some point. And as I explained, this will continue our interaction through this process. And it's, I think, just the resolve our agencies have and the commitment to work together and see this law get fully implemented. So it really, really impressed, and I'm just gratified to the point we're at today. Like I said, it's a time of transition away from planning to implementation. I can proudly say that every basin has an adopted plan that's being implemented. There are different points with us or the board. We do have 86 basins that have approved plans. And again, I somewhat point out that they're somewhat conditionally approved. And again, the description of the 7 basins under the board's purview. And our initial, I do want to talk about the initial review versus the ongoing oversight and periodic evaluation. It was a focus and of whether the plans were complete, whether they were compliant with the law, and they had some indication that they were going to reach sustainability, but they were more than a compliance check or a bureaucratic exercise. We did want to find the deficiencies, but it was also a feedback mechanism to us about what were the GSAs seeing or not seeing in the law. So it really was a feedback mechanism and pointed to us about what types of information, guidance, and assistance we needed to provide besides giving them the corrective measures. So drinking water guidance was one of the examples that was out there. And that was something that we really saw woefully inadequate response in many plans in their initial plans. And again, in 2014, the 2 drivers that caused the law getting enacted was high rates of subsidence and thousands of wells that went dry during the drought that were just exacerbated by poor groundwater management. So those things were very surprising to see that was not really seriously addressed. So besides those being kind of the leading things that led to many basins getting deemed inadequate, many became incomplete and ultimately approved, but we, really it became apparent we needed to prepare some guidance, which I think started the process of getting basins where they started, again, local agencies from 6 months going that we have no responsibility for this, and in 6 months turning around saying, yes, we are stewards of all the groundwater users and users, and we have responsibility, and starting to stand up what that responsibility looks like, which is a major step. We know that many of the basins that did take that step have a ways to go. And so that's where we're continuing to look at how they're implementing, in this case, mitigation measures through the periodic evaluation to continue on that to see that they fulfill their obligation under their sustainability goal to mitigate and address wells. Again, the feedback mechanism we've seen in initial plans also leads to upcoming guidance we're going to have on depletion of impacted surface waters. This, again, was a new aspect of water management, one of the main 6 indicators. We had produced the scientific papers last year to create the foundation for water managers and others to understand the scientific underpinnings of depletion of impacted surface water. And we're sent it out for comments. We've received comments, and we're going through that. We're getting close to drafting the guidance document. We'll be meeting with board staff before that goes out. We're both have basins that going to have to be addressed with this, and so we're looking for the second quarter of this year to have that go out on the street. As we implement this, we're going to, again, we have basins that are in the midst of implementing. We're going to need to take a look at where different basins are and their implementation horizon, and sort of the nature of what level of interconnectedness they have, and how far along they are in achieving what we have for guidance. Some basins did a fairly decent job starting out, some didn't. So we want to just get them on the right track and quickly as possible in starting to address depletion of interconnected surface water. The other major indicator that we have is obviously subsidence. The other major factor that brought SGMA into being, again, we have not seen, other than a couple really good prime examples, not a lot of good movement on subsidence. And this is, the more we're investigating, we're finding more and more major issues with subsidence, not just on the high-level conveyance problems, levees, but also roads, gas lines, other infrastructure problems that are having subsidence problems. And a lot of this isn't even apparent to the infrastructure owners. It's just buried in O&E repairs. And it's becoming almost apparent in some areas that this is just the way things are. And it's just a cycle of state, federal, local, public dollars cycling back to mitigate something that's continually not being addressed. So, you know, the time is now. We are going to be issuing a best management practice document and likely regulations to accompany that. Again, in the second quarter of this year. Best management practice documents have to, and the regulations, we still have emergency regulation powers, have to have 3 workshops and get presented to the California Water Commission. Again, we'll be working with board staff as we develop the draft before it goes out. This is going to be a significant action for GSAs. Really, the basic step is to bring water levels up to critical head, which is the point when groundwater levels were high enough when subsidence wasn't occurring. And in some places, that may be, you know, 50, 100 feet, which may be, whether it's practical or impossible, is going to be very difficult. But we need to start that process now. It's going to cause a significant ask on land transition. So I think there's going to have to be a considerable state effort in these areas, because you are dealing with a lot of ag transition, jobs, and community impacts. But we're also dealing with a very serious problem that is affecting infrastructure, wells, and water conveyance. We're also dealing with, too, not just the areas that have been historically hit with subsidence, but a lot of newly emerging areas, which was very troubling, particularly up in the Sacramento Valley. This was an area that, being from there, we never thought that it would occur. So having it start to emerge, you know, for people up there, water managers, others, has really shook their boots. And it's something people really want to roll their sleeves up and start to address it as quickly as possible, which is very encouraging. So those 2 drivers are going to be coming out before summer. And those are going to cause, again, many basins to have to modify and change what they have planned in their basin right now. And that really speaks that as plans go for the next 15, 18 years, which the time's moving, their plans are going to adapt. And no plan's going to look exactly the same as they look now, even approved plans that they're going to look in 2040 and 2042 to address these issues, the changing climate, interbasin interaction, which we have not addressed yet, and land use and water supply changes, which are always going to be adapted. So, but as we go through, we're going to be still working on our two pillars of oversight and assistance. As we go through our stewardship period, we're going to be still looking at plans, but we're going to shift and have more of our emphasis go into whether basin conditions are improving and project management actions are actually being implemented, recommended corrective actions are actually being carried out and addressed. The periodic evaluation and annual reports provide a means for us to evaluate progress, real progress on the ground, empirical progress, not what's written on paper or what a model may show. We expect to engage a lot more with local agencies, the GSAs. So even if we find a problem, a monitoring well may change, we may make a phone call, try to fix the problems early on. But if we start to see major problems like basins are not improving or they're out of compliance, then we still may get to a point where we may deem a basin incomplete and inadequate and have it be returned to the board, even basins that went initially approved. So that's always in the cards. The periodic evaluation, I do want to speak to that, is, every 5 years, they'll submit their plans. We have 15 periodic evaluations have been submitted from the critically overdrafted basins, and it's only the ones that have approvals. So we have a 75-day public comment period through the SGMA portal. Public comments will be considered. And our goal is to have these periodic evaluations done by the end of the year. And again, the periodic evaluation is going to look a lot like the initial review. We're going to come out with a formal determination and findings and a determination whether that periodic evaluation is approval with probably corrective actions, or it might be incomplete and have a 6-month process again that may lead to inadequate determination or an approval. So we will be going through that process. So we will be looking at their interim milestones. Are they on track in a real world basis on what the data shows? Projects and management actions proceeding, and if the plans are amended or revised, we'll be looking to see if those changes are in compliance and if they made the changes to our recommended corrective actions. In the end, all plans will adapt and change in the end. And again, I do want to circle back to basins that will ultimately return to the department. When they do come back, we will do a full review of those amended plans completely, and again, issue a full determination and review that will include determination of either an approval, incomplete, and start going down that process again, bringing them into the fold. So again, the next 5 years, we'll be going through this process, continuing this exchange with the department, the board, working with the GSAs on implementation. Again, considerable progress has been made, but I think just the challenges out there, I think good discussion of the challenges with outreach, with underrepresented communities. The department has programs to have outreach. We have a number of NGOs under contract. We're bringing this program up to enhance the program to underrepresented small farms and communities and groundwater dependent ecosystems. We also have challenges with some of the smaller GSAs. Some of the basins pump less than 10,000 acre feet, so you have an economy of scale. So we're looking at reporting requirements. How can we streamline annual reports without changing the requirements, making it easier for them to just report the data and make their reporting a lot easier in the process. Again, litigation, we anticipated that as implementation goes, that's going to be challenging both for the board, department, and GSAs. That will continue. And then again, land repurposing. As implementation goes, this is going to be a real challenge in a lot of communities for agriculture, and we've started to see that. And so I think with some of the programs with MLRP, multi-benefit land repurposing, and some of the other programs we have about assisting the communities in the transition is going to be very, very important about whether that's 500,000 acres of ag or 1 million, what can be done to, one, achieve sustainability, but lessen the economic impacts is really a moral obligation we have to try to do what we can to achieve the goal, but help communities through this transition. So with that, I thank you all.
Thank you as well. Really appreciative of your leadership, Mr. Gosselin, and your team and our team here as well. To your point, it is impressive just how much work has gone in, where we are in our process here, but we're in the thick of it. Insofar as, this is really now, as we move into implementation, when things start to get harder. And it is an iterative process. And so looking to continue to be open, to learn from one another. I know that, early on, I think there was some concern out there that, the differences, if, any emerged between DWR and the State Water Board would catch, the basins in the middle of those differences. And so appreciate the collaborative work that we've done to minimize and make sure that we're both on the same page as agencies so that we can, be able to implement and with a one voice, if you will, as we work with our groundwater sustainability agencies, and have to just give a lot of acknowledgement and credit to the GSAs, even those that find themselves with inadequate GSPs currently. Everyone has continued to just really roll up their sleeves, work together and lean on one another insofar as really trying to unpack what are very technically complex groundwater basins that we're trying to manage here into the future, but in ways that continue to keep communities first. It's not lost on me that State Water Resources Control Board here, we're still funding thousands of wells, dry wells, with our hauled water program. So we know that there is just an ongoing need. And even, with 3 decent years here, these last years, we still are seeing dry wells happen. So there's a real need to continue to focus on those management actions that continue to help make sure that we support communities even through these transition years as the GSAs do their best to wrap their arms around what is not an easy issue and incredibly fraught and I know very personal and emotional in many times when we talk about the futures of our communities here throughout the state, and particularly in San Joaquin. So just thanks, really incredible work that I continue to see through all this. Really appreciate the thorough update. And looking to my fellow board colleagues, if they have questions, comment. Vice Chair, please.
Thank you all. And I absolutely agree with the compliments all around, including all the incredible work that's going on locally. And even for those, where we've undertaken some action initially, it's really heartening to continue to receive updates, even from areas of the state where they're really struggling quite a bit and frustrated. But do appreciate the communication, the ongoing communication and touch points with our staff. And it's great to have such a wonderful team that's advising us every step of the way, because these are difficult decisions. I'd like to spend a little more time on subsidence, because that's an area that I think we're all, really maybe troubled by as we learn more about the science, and just want to follow up with a couple of questions. So I do look forward to kicking off this public opportunity to hear more about the guidance document that you'll be releasing, but would like to know what you're doing to make sure you get the broadest base of expertise before you make the decision. So I know you have expertise within the department, but that some of the GSAs are developing their own expertise, and then outside sources as well. So just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you. We've been working with USGS and their expertise, and we have consultants who've been working with us. And also there's been a district in the Houston area who had major subsidence issues that actually caused flooding and some casualties, lives lost years ago. And they actually, I think, had 2 workshops with us and presented some information. So we've reached out on a number of fronts on some expertise on subsidence.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, excuse me, looking at just the serious nature of this and a early view, like what you're saying, that with respect to additional requirements above and beyond what some of the GSAs are contemplating or what they currently have in their plans, and help us to understand where, even if we get to a point where we see that the information is there to justify that these are undesirable results. We're talking about impacts on infrastructure, et cetera. But then going back and looking at the act and the local GSAs are not responsible for impacts from prior to 2015. So if you could talk a little bit about that, because I imagine when I heard you mentioning some additional requirements, I'm figuring that those that are watching, that piqued their interest as well. So how do we move forward in this new arena where we're getting more information on subsidence, more information on the science, and at the same time where that fits in with the existing requirements enacted by the legislature?
Yeah, I'll say that what we're putting out isn't going to be anything new. It's not going to be new requirements. I think it's going to be clarifying what the intent of SGMA, which the intent, and this was kind of a different for this indicator, for subsidence indicator. It said the intent of SGMA is to minimize or avoid subsidence. That is different than any of the other indicators. It gave a clear message that clear directive about subsidence. So, so the challenge that we have is because the way the law is written, local agencies, GSAs, are the ones responsible for identifying undesirable results. We've held the point that it would be a step over the line for us to go out and state what those undesirable results are, or in this case, what the critical infrastructures are. So in many cases, what we've found, and this goes to all indicators and why comments are very helpful for us, we've had entities write into us, and in this case, owners of infrastructure, whether it's levees or conveyance, and they'll say, look, you're saying you're going to let this, let's say, subside X number of feet, and our freeboard doesn't subside, and that's not going to work, and that's not, and so we'll pose the question like, can you justify that not being undesirable when the owner of the infrastructure says that? Explain that to us. So it becomes this Socratic back and forth to get there. The same thing was done with drinking water. There's no way we could require or mandate a GSA to mitigate wells. The law does not give us the authority to do that. So the way it was done is, it was that iterative of sort of like, you're going to let wells go dry, explain to us how that's not an undesirable result. I've been on a well for 30 years and said, like, you choose to manage a basin a certain way that would have my well that's operating very fine, I won't use well again, for, and it's 30 years old, older than 25 years old, explain how that's not an undesirable result. And you get into that kind of aha moment kind of thing. So the law creates sort of difficult, but it's still local control. And in subsidence, the intent and what we want to do is have them take a very close look at the local infrastructure. And I think even in the law does call for impinging on land uses. So you're also dealing with, are you creating a bowl that create a flood hazard? Or are you creating impacts that could impact future land uses and others? So those things need to be looked at, but it would have to be looked at by the local GSA. So I went on.
Not at all. No,
Okay.
It's an interesting subject, and it strikes me that on one tour in particular, I was told, well, maybe subsidence isn't all that bad because the entire area is subsiding, and if it subsides at the same rate, and maybe it doesn't have an impact on major infrastructure. So then, the question becomes, well, what about local infrastructure? And so as you're talking about, sort of the query back and forth, what can be done? I know that GSAs, they have a lot on their plate already, but what can be done to bring in other entities like public works departments, county officials that maybe aren't tracking this as closely, as you say, flood control agencies, to get them to be part of the dialogue so that those questions emerge. Otherwise, we may not know, you may not know to ask those questions.
Yes, and I think that's one of the things we're going to need to broaden the discussion with other agencies, Caltrans, others, and broaden the discussion about, these sort of impacts. I think that's going to be one of the guidance we have for the GSAs is, to broaden your outreach to the other entities, to your county, public works department on roads and others on taking a look. So that's one of the explorations we're doing on data and other sort of impacts. And we've heard impacts like it may not be a big deal and other sort of things. We've heard early on beneficial subsidence, which was a bizarre term. So said, don't say that anymore, please. But it's almost like throwing a hand grenade. You don't know where it's going. It's not like it's a controlled action. And I'm not a hydrologist, but I don't think it's once it starts, you're not really controlling it. But I think it speaks to the nature of just the difficulty of trying to manage it versus some of the other indicators we have, even difficult ones like water quality and other sort of things. People get it and kind of do it, but this is going to be a difficult one to do. But we're going to need to start taking those steps now, and it's going to take time, but the immediacy is now, because even the residual subsidence is going to plague us for decades.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. Really appreciate the line of questions, and thank you, Mr. Gosselin. Yeah, what I've appreciated is, seeing some of the basins, I think of, Kauai, others that have really just embraced the to your point, complex technical nature of subsidence, and really looking at the lower aquifer and pumping in the lower aquifer, and what is that contributing more than necessarily in the upper, and really teasing out that data to really figure out what actions best actually arrest it. So just really appreciate that. Actually, and it did, you mentioned mitigation and sort of the somewhat, nexus that, SGMA doesn't require that mitigation. But just kind of wondering, if there is within the law mention of mitigation, and, where the sort of the line ends when, we think of either mitigation of subsidence or mitigation of dry wells as well. Because it's been really, I think, an important component seeing GSAs embrace the fact that wells will go dry, or there will be mitigation, or there will be subsidence rather, and seeking to then, mitigate that as part of sort of the package of how they manage the basin. But, wondering kind of if there are bright lines around where there is required mitigation versus it's a nice thing to have on top.
Yeah, our interpretation was our guidance document was up to the legal line and a toe over.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Looking to
well, not a toe over, but at the line.
I think the way that we look at it is that if you're causing a well to go dry, and that's an undesirable result, but you can change that by mitigating that. So we're not requiring you to mitigate. What we're requiring you to do is stop the undesirable result. And you can do that either by keeping the water level up or by mitigating the harm that it caused.
Really appreciate that, Mr. Bishop. And thank you, Mr. Gosselin. Board Member McGuire.
Yes, I want to echo the thanks to Mr. Gosselin and to staff for this really, really informative presentation. And it is a lot. Just reflecting back on the last couple of years here since the basins were sent over to us, by DWR. It's really impressive to see how far we've come and the recognition that, yeah, this has been a nonlinear process. And it's a testament to staff's efforts to be nimble and adaptive and understanding that we didn't have all the answers coming into this, to know exactly how the probationary process would unfold. And I think we've experienced that with each of the basins and shown that we've taken each one on its own merits and for its unique circumstances and the unique GSAs and the unique basins and issues that are presented in each of those basins. And that I think goes a long way. And also, I think your willingness to show our work and go above and beyond with the staff reports, with the workshops and the outreach and all these steps that have happened along the way, which have contributed to the non-linearity of this, but have also really, I think, fostered a good dialogue. And we've seen responses from the groundwater sustainability agencies as a result of that, and in most cases, progress to meeting the sustainability goals. So as I'm thinking about going forward now, you know, another term that's come up in the past has been moving of the goalposts. And, you know, those expectations sort of shifting over time. And I realize this has always been an understanding that Sigma is going to be adaptive and iterative, and it's, you know, we don't know all the answers from day one. So I appreciate, Mr. Gosselin, you being here and your remarks. And I do have a question for you just to build on, or two questions, just to build on some of the input that we've already had in the discussions on subsidence. In particular, I'm glad to hear the guidance is coming out soon. I think it's becoming more and more urgent to have all of the guidance out so that the GSAs can have time to react to that, process it, and incorporate it into their plans and decisions as they go forward. And I know that this was a big year for the adaptive updates to the plans. And what I'm a little fuzzy on is when that next update would occur. So if all this interconnected surface water guidance and the subsidence guidance and maybe some regulations are forthcoming, how long would the basins then have to fold that into their planning and take that into consideration?
Yeah, thank you. And I like the analogy of moving the goalposts, and I'm thinking we're not moving the goalposts because it's a 20-year implementation. We're actually moving down the field, and the goalpost is looking like it's getting closer. You know, we gave people 20 years. We didn't want to get them on the 1-yard line in 2015. But that's what you raised is one of the challenging questions we have is we know what the guidance is going to be. The question is the implementation of knowing basins are at different spots of achieving what we intend in the, let's say, the varying guidance, and how we, let's say, onboard them either through their periodic evaluation or annual reports scheduling, like how does that work in real time and phasing them in while they're doing a lot of other things. So one, for the subsidence BMP, they're going to go out for comment, public workshops. So that's going to be one of the compelling issues we're going to raise out and try to get some feedback on. And we're going to have some thoughts on how the different components, we're going to want some feedback and some thoughts about when we expect them to respond to us on schedules and other things on feeding back. So we don't want to set them up for failure. We do want to strike that balance about, you know, having some, you know, some action get going, but not to the point that it disrupts sort of their action and movement. So that's going to take some thought and something we're really thinking about.
I appreciate that. And I'm thinking about that a lot too, because, you know, we've been carefully looking at subsidence and all the plans that have come to the board. And so that's been an important consideration as well. So thank you for that. My other question, sorry, no softballs today, but the other one is, you mentioned the I wrote down the term, interbasin interactions.
Yes.
And that has been something that's been more and more on my mind recently in terms of some of these basins, particularly in the Tulare, San Joaquin Valley, they're sub-basins per Bulletin 118, but they're larger groundwater basins in reality, and that there is interconnection there between them. Like we've seen challenges in a given sub-basin with multiple plans and having different assumptions and different modeling and things in those plans. I'm concerned, that whether that could be happening across the bigger sub-basin boundaries. How are you looking at that, or what should we expect in terms of how to address or identify whether there's any issues there?
Yeah, and actually, if you go, north of Delta, Sacramento Valley is pretty much all interconnected, by and large. So a lot of basins have been thinking about this and have had discussions on this with their adjoining basins, and some have had facilitation services to have communications with the other basins, adjoining basins, just preliminarily, trying to understand technical natures of where they set their basin, their basin levels, just to see where their commonalities are. So those discussions have happened in a lot of circles. I think one of the things that, again, back to the subsidence BMP, in a lot of areas, there's going to need to be a regional solution. In some of these, if you look at some of the bowls, they're right over smack dab across basins. So I think as we go out with the subsidence BMP, one component we're going to need to do is we're going to also need to be there with technical assistance. I don't see us just putting this BMP out and accompanying regulations and just having them fend for themselves. So I think we're going to need to be there with technical assistance, if it's even some additional monitoring wells and some staff to help navigate. And I think even in some of these areas where the subsidence is right across, interbasin areas, I think there's a means for us to help navigate the basins actually working through that, which will start having the initial discussions about interbasin interaction. So again, I think we'll probably pick this up in a much bigger way in 2026 once we get through these other things. It's a capacity issue. And I think also for us and the GSAs, once they get through these other things and then have to take a look across boundaries and see if there are orders of magnitude differences on where they're going to manage their basins, is there a need to kind of make some adjustments? Again, another change into what their trajectory is. And so we're going to need to take that stepwise.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Appreciate the update.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member. Thank you, Mr. Gosselin. Board Member Firestone.
Great. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I really appreciate this and echo really everything that all the chair, vice chair, and board member McGuire have already said. Really great to have a check-in, amazing progress, and we are entering a new phase. And I am particularly looking at the development of mitigation programs for drinking water as an important new phase. This sort of allows the, as you all discussed, allows a transition period, but still make sure that the impacts of groundwater depletion are not borne just by especially domestic well owners who are the most vulnerable, but that those impacts are mitigated as the basin as a whole transitions to be sustainable. I want to just acknowledge that currently our SAFER funding and public funding has been and continues to be used for mitigation of drinking water impacts, including hauled water for domestic wells. And some of that was, for example, drought emergency funding that has been expended, but it continues to be a strain on the limited funding we have for ensuring all Californians can have access to safe and affordable drinking water. So I'm really looking and excited for these mitigation programs in the critically overdrafted basins in particular, where we're seeing the most impact since 2015. We're seeing a lot of wells continue to rely on hauled water and use public financing from impacts after 2015. And I'm really looking forward to the mitigation programs, looking at taking that on and helping these, including domestic wells, but even public water systems where they're impacted, helping them transition to something where they're not going to be impacted by groundwater depletions. I think there's really great models that have been developed, you know, in these critically overdrafted areas that, for example, Kauai, I know that both Thule and Kern have developed really, I think all of the, you know, the basins that have been brought to us have been working on developing mitigation programs. And I just encourage everyone to be looking at each other for best practices, for learning. I know that, for example, water quality is not as straightforward in terms of how it's linked to groundwater depletions, but we do continue to see science showing us that groundwater depletions and pumping do lead to increases of concentration of naturally occurring contaminants into aquifers and wells, so including arsenic and uranium and other things. So beyond just nitrate and links to the irrigated or both the irrigated lands and CV salts programs, I think it's really important that we see these mitigation programs developing ways and helping develop kind of best practices for how to navigate these spaces that are challenging and new. But also, I think helping us make sure that we're enabling the transition that is really hard on these areas to happen while people can have access to safe drinking water, and we're not having to spend the limited public funds we have for dealing with failing systems or you know, the broader safer program needs to dealing with things like hauled water for in areas where groundwater has been depleted. So in particular, I wanted to call attention to just DWR and Mr. Goslin, your comments about the periodic reviews. And I think in particular, you know, some of these overdrafted or critically overdrafted areas, including Kings and Madera, have a lot of households that are relying on hauled water that currently SAFER is paying for. And so I'm hopeful that through this process of periodic review, it's an opportunity to make sure that those mitigation programs in those areas can start to take that on. And we can be coordinating well together around how we can get to sustainability. And I really look forward to hearing the review that you all do over the course of this year for those areas that you know, we're able to develop a plan that passed the adequacy test. But this is a chance for us to see whether the actions and impacts are being successful and how to look at those. But overall, just wanted to really appreciate the work that everyone's done, especially the groundwater sustainability agencies. This is such a huge and difficult task, and I think incredibly exciting to see the progress that's been made on this Herculean effort, but one that we are really all invested in trying to make sure is successful. Appreciate it.
You're here. Thank you, board member. Really appreciate those comments and in agreement. Okay, if we don't have any further discussion here at the dais, we have about 4 commenters we can listen to and see if there's more discussion at that point. I'd like to first call up Angela Islas, be followed by Derek Urosek, then Kasha Hunt, and our last commenter will be Tien Tran.
Can everyone hear me?
We can. Good morning. Good to have you with us.
Yeah, good morning, Chair Esquivel, board members. This is Angela Islas, Water Projects Coordinator with Central California Environmental Justice Network. Just really appreciate the opportunity to listen in on the informational item on SGMA. Definitely over 10 years of just a lot of organizing, and even definitely on all other organizations that I've worked really closely and on the ground on this. It has really come a long way. And even in this journey that we're all in, we're still like learning bits and pieces of just really what sustainability should look like on the ground for all our communities. And so I just really want to appreciate just the comments that Board Member Firestone had made just regarding the importance of mitigation and then the coordination with this program alongside with SAFER. I am supporting a domestic well community in West Fresno County that is currently just kind of on pause with their SAFER project. And it's just only because of the limitation of funds from last year and those allocations that this community is still needing to depend on the hauled water program and bottled water program that Self Help Enterprises is offering under their SAFER funds. So I think that that this community falls under the King Subbasin. There definitely needs to be a lot more closer attention to these subbasins and their mitigation frameworks, because clearly it's almost as if that's not really aligning with what's going on in that community. And even just hearing that there could potentially be a 9th well going dry, we need to understand just sort of, what is the issue around effectively implementing mitigation, but then also, keeping in mind that, SAFER has its limitations right now with funding. So I definitely do want to echo Board Member Firestone's comments, and then just really still elevate the importance of really focusing on mitigation, because I again, it's almost like climate's changing really fast, and many of these residents are really unsure when their time comes that their well is going to run out of water, and then even for them, where are they going to go from there to long-term sustainability for their community and even for their neighbors as well. So just still more to work on, but I definitely appreciate everyone's hard work on this, and just looking forward to still continuing to fight alongside these residents for sustainability. So thanks so much for the time, Chair Esquivel.
Thank you for the continued work and collaboration and effort here in advocacy. It is really making a difference, and really appreciate your voice in all of this, Ms. Islas. Thanks for the continued effort and partnership across all of this. Next, I'd like to call up Derek Urasic, be followed by Kasha Hunt, and then Tien Tran.
Right. Good morning, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. My name is Derek Urasic, and I serve as the chair of the Kern County Subbasin Coordination Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the subbasin's progress since the February 20th probationary hearing. Over the past 2 months, the subbasin has made significant strides. We are on track to submit our draft 2025 amended GSP to the state staff by the June 20th deadline, with a final plan scheduled for adoption in August ahead of the continued probationary hearing on September 17th. Our progress has been tightly aligned with addressing the issues identified at the February 20th hearing, particularly those related to groundwater levels, groundwater quality, monitoring networks, and subsidence. In coordination with your staff, we have completed several high-priority technical tasks, including updates to our representative monitoring well network and advancements in our groundwater quality data gap analysis. We're also actively adjusting minimum thresholds where appropriate based on local data and feedback from board staff. Equally vital to the subbasin's progress is our commitment to strengthening trust and engagement with the communities we serve. On March 20th, we submitted our community outreach and engagement strategy to board staff and are actively implementing a range of activities, including hosting targeted events throughout the subbasin, including 5 upcoming community pop-up events in the communities of Lost Hills, Delano, Buttonwillow, Shafter, and Lamont. Providing material and interpretation in English, Spanish, and Punjabi. Holding monthly community partner meetings to gather feedback and improving our plan, and updating our website and launching social media channels to keep the public informed. We encourage members of the public to engage with us by visiting kerngsp.com or following at Kern County Subbasin on both Facebook and Instagram. Combined with our technical progress, these outreach and engagement efforts ensure that all beneficial users have a seat at the table and that our final plan reflects both the needs of those who rely on groundwater and the sound science needed to protect those uses. Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and we look forward to continuing this important work in collaboration with the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosick. I really appreciate your continued leadership, the engagement here and responsiveness and engaging with communities. It's really appreciated and means a lot. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, I believe we have Kasha Hunt, but I don't see her on the platform, and I don't believe she's in the room. And so we will go next to Tien Tran.
Hello, board chair and members. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Just want to say thank you so much for having this informational item and hearing from both State Water Board and Department of Water Resources and how you've been collaborating to make sure that groundwater is protected throughout the state and is protected for all beneficial users and uses as required in SGMA. But I just also am looking forward to seeing the different guidance documents that are coming out, the subsidence one, the interconnected surface water one. But ultimately, I think we know that in order for SGMA to be successful, we have to have real demand management. We have to have actual pumping limits and a big understanding that the way that we've been over extracting groundwater is not okay. And, you know, we need to stop wasting our time with plans and actually take that into action and make sure that local agencies are following the best management practices and following state guidance to make sure that communities, the environment, farmers, everyone is able to, you know, use their groundwater and not be afraid to turn on the tap. Thank you so much for your time and, you know, look forward to continue working with you.
Likewise, Ms. Tran, really appreciate those comments and continued engagement across all of this. It's all the voices and efforts here are what make the difference for us when it comes to this difficult task, but critical work. So thank you. All right, that wraps up our commenters. Looking to see if there was any further comment. Mr. Bishop, please.
I just want to take this opportunity. I was reflecting on the slides, and in the last 2 years, this team has reviewed 84 different GSPs. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment in such a short period of time. They have individually analyzed 6 different basins, coming up with different recommendations for each. I know there was a lot of concern early on that once it came to the water boards, it was just, they were just going to be putting everybody on probation, and they were trying to collect badges for, you know, probationary badges for their jackets. But the reality is this team has done a fabulous job, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank them. I'm not trying to exclude Paul and his team, but I'm just not as familiar with the work they've done. But I've seen quite an amazing amount of work and collaboration and thoughtfulness on your team. You have a great team.
You're here. Well, thank you for that acknowledgement. And it extends to you as well, John, in your leadership and the work that has been going on here, especially recently, in your oversight of the program. It shows your even, steady hand, and just want to acknowledge that amongst it as well. So thank you. All right, looking to fellow board colleagues if there's any further comment, question, and if not, just thank you again. Really appreciate the good work. The work is ongoing, but this was a really great check-in to be able to cap off what has been a lot of activity here, and what, like I said, will be a lot more. So just much appreciated. Looking forward to what I know will be further discussions in all of this, and just huge thanks on this is incredible effort by everyone. So thank you. All right, that wraps up item number 5, our informational item, and brings us to item number 6, board member reports. I'll look to fellow board colleagues if anyone has anything they'd like to report off the bat. Let me quickly pull up my own calendar, see where I'm at.
I have no report. Thanks.
Thank you, board member. Board member Morgan.
Hello. So I have one item to report. On April 8th, I had the honor of going to the city of Niels. It is I believe it's the most eastern city in California. They have an 80-year-old system, and they had the honor of being named the hottest city in the U.S. last July with temperatures averaging 103 degrees. And when Niels has failures, they actually are not able to receive hauled water or bottled water. They actually have to call the American Red Cross because there is no other city in California within 140 miles. Their closest city to them is actually across state lines. And so, they've been working with the state board for a while, working with Division of Drinking Water and Financial Assistance. And, we were there to celebrate the completion of a multi-phase project. There was actually 5 phases in this project. So not only, is an aging infrastructure that they're dealing with, they're also dealing with iron and manganese. And so, they have a new treatment plant that was just completed earlier this calendar year to treat the iron and manganese. They replaced one booster pump station because even though they're out there in the desert, they do have multiple elevations that they are trying to supply drinking water to. They upgraded another booster pump station. They put in a generator. They replaced some of their aging infrastructure and also put in a SCADA system so they can see what's going on. So it was a great day. It was a little funny because even though I knew where I was going, I was like, why is this happening so early in the day? Well, because it's hot. So it was already 80 degrees when when we're out there at 9 a.m. And so nice and warm, hot day. It's just a great group of people who really are just passionate about just bringing projects to their community and really seeing things move forward. Their grant writer, and she says, it wasn't just about doing her job, but just really a passion because all her family lives there. Her family has been there for generations. And so it was also just personal. And she really did, she reflected on her working with the state board and said that was just a great experience. She really did like working with Division of Financial Assistance. She mentioned Pete Stamus, says he went above and beyond and just really took the time to listen to her, and really understand what their needs were and the impacts that the grant would have on their community. So just really want to thank all of our staff for really listening to, what our remote community out there and really listening to what their needs were and really working with them on this multi-phase project. They still have work to do within the city, but they're just really grateful. And I think this might be the first time I've gone to a event like this where someone has walked up and said, thank you, I'm just a citizen and I wanted to be here for this moment. And I really just wanted to thank the water board for working with us. And I had a note, you're not just a citizen, you are why we do this work, and really want to thank you for being here and really, engaging on this project and the work and your community. So it was a great day and really happy that I was able to be there.
We're very fortunate that you were there representing the board and its leadership here. Just thanks to you, Nicole, for being there And yeah, this investment was really a generational investment in the system in Needles, and it's an honor truly for us to be able to be part of just this incredible work. And so thank you for being there, being at the ribbon cutting. I know the governor also elevated the investment and the opportunity. So I think a lot of pride all around in the continued work, and just one example of the many communities that we're able to work with and have the pleasure of being able to try to assist here. And again, what are many times generational investments in their systems. Huge thanks, Nicole. Thank you. Other board colleagues, Board Member McGuire.
Yes, thank you. So I had a chance to make a site visit myself, and on Friday, April 11th, went to Clear Lake at the invitation of staff with water rights to check out the progress that the Hitch are making. And I know Board Member Morgan went a couple of weeks ago on, I think, this similar, very same tour, and gave a report. So I won't belabor it, but I do want to give a weather update. It was phenomenal. 70 degrees and green, and it was actually the nicest visit I've ever had to Clear Lake, really seeing at its peak of the season. So that was good. And it was also encouraging. I saw some live spawning hitch, and they're actually larger than I expected. So that was surprising, but I saw quite a number of them. So that was encouraging to see. And also just seeing a number of the both the habitat restoration projects that the tribes are engaged in, as well as a number of the efforts by the agriculture and the land stewards in trying to better utilize the resource. I think it was just inspiring to see that the work continues. There's a long ways to go still, but I'm definitely seeing progress.
That's fantastic. Really appreciate that. Yeah, definitely a perfect time of year to be out there. And yeah, surprising, given the hitch, the size is a minnow. Very large minnow. It's a very large minnow. Vice Chair, anything to report? So quickly on April 3rd, Thursday, April 3rd, I was at the Senate Budget Subcommittee representing the boards and our work, which was a good opportunity to discuss just an overview of the board and our work, but then also our requests, one of them being around SGMA. And then on Thursday, the 10th, last week, I was at the American Waterworks Association conference. There was a sort of a side event that we held with the Danish Water Technology Alliance, and the American Waterworks Association, and our folks here discussing conservation, the conservation regulation, its implementation, but just also the international scope that so much of the work around water loss, conservation, climate impacts on water systems has. So it was great to have an opportunity to share the space with our Danish partners, share the space with AWWA, Department of Water Resources as well, and just being able to get into a little bit of a deep dive around the implementation of the Making Conservation a Way of Life regulation that we passed just last year, prior. Yeah, so that was great. And then the other thing I have to mention is that this is Jonathan Bishop's last board meeting. John, I know we're going to have a proper to-do and celebration of your retirement here, but I just want to take a moment to just say a few words. It's not lost on me how fortunate we are to have real dedicated public servants here within the board. Your over 40-year career here at the boards has been stellar, whether your representation at the regional board, your time here, and as chief deputy, it has left a mark on this state. You're always honest and, importantly, experienced voice across the regulatory work of this board is felt, I know, by myself and everyone here at the institution. Those years of experience are hard-earned, and it's not lost on me, especially in this climate right now, where regulatory work is often misunderstood or malaligned. Your just consistent presence and voice and leadership just means a whole hell of a lot. And I just know in my 8 years here at the board, I've come to learn a lot from you, and as I have a number of other public servants here at this institution. So just can't thank you enough on behalf of certainly the board, but the people of California as well, for your, I mean, I think of even our data systems, you know, the very foundation of our decision-making, GeoTracker, all of these systems, we have you to thank for. And so I just thank you. I can't express my appreciation enough. We'll continue to do so here at your retirement event, but just thank you. And please, if there's any words you'd like to leave us a bit with, would really appreciate it, because I know, again, your presence, your experience is going to be missed amongst us. There's no way to replace you as an individual and a person here, and just owe you so much thanks, because no matter what project out there you've been given, you've put yourself completely into it, and it completely shows.
Well, thank you for those kind words. It's been an honor to spend my career here at the water boards. This is the most dedicated and folks that I've ever met. And so I'm very appreciative that you left off the brutally honest and just went with honest. But I do appreciate my time, and I'm going to miss all of you, and look forward to spending more time with my daughter.
Well deserved there. And yes, I'll say that, you know, whenever folks come in, they, you know, full of bright ideas, you know, things that we want to try to do, the benefit of your experience is people have tried them before. As bright as any one of us board members or others may think we are, someone has probably already tried it, it failed, and what's important is you've always been able to provide us, well, maybe this alternative will work this time, and guided us in ways that, again, I just can't thank you enough. So thank you, John. I don't know if there's anything, Vice Chair, you'd like to add as well.
Gosh, I don't even know where to start, because you are probably the first person that I got close to when I came here to the board, because we both worked so late. We were, you know, you were here staying in your apartment, and I didn't go home, so I'd stay and we'd work late. And so we'd get to know each other. And I just really appreciate the wise, strategic, direct counsel. You've been a mentor for me and a friend, and we are all so much better off. The state's better off because of all that you have done, and your touch will continue to be felt, you know, on into the generations going forward. And so there's really no greater compliment than that. And I know that's what really matters to you. I think it's also amazing that it's despite how incredible you are as a leader, and your knowledge base, and all the work that you've done to pull together diverse groups to forge a solution and bring things to us that really help us in our quest to provide for improved water quality, to administer water rights, and to do so in a balanced and thoughtful way. And you've made that job, that very difficult job, easier and possible. And so just really want to thank you for that, but mostly just thank you for being such a good friend, and Godspeed to you.
Thank you. I remember fondly working on my daughter's homework with Dee Dee next door doing actual work, but
well, no, I mean, for me, it just as I was getting to know you and really working on some complicated issues that I didn't know much about, once through cooling, for example, desal, lots of things that I didn't know much about. So as I was learning from you, I was impressed with what matters the most, and that is, you know, you're a good family person. You're an amazing father to your daughter, and I just always enjoyed hearing you counsel her in between the wall there about her algebra homework. So impressed with that you did it, you know, would work with her every night. But just the twinkle in your eye when you'd talk about her, and the joy that you had in seeing her progress. And you were able to accomplish something that I wasn't able to, and that is she's following in your footsteps. So That's also another compliment to your wise counsel.
You're here. Board Member McGuire.
I really can't believe this day is approaching. If there's some way to keep you around longer, I'm definitely willing to entertain that. I mean, I think I actually share that common wall with him now, but look, you've left a really profound impression on me and my career and my ability to do my job. And I am so appreciative of that. And for me, it started when I was staff, when I was working in water rights, and also worked in Division of Financial Assistance. But particularly in water rights, when I had the chance to kind of shadow and work with you on the Los Angeles River, and that effort in just really bringing different constituents, different stakeholder groups, different cities together that didn't always had, I think, common goals, but sometimes they clashed. And it all kind of came to a head on the LA River when you looked at stormwater and recycled water and the environmental needs and recreational. It really does come down to balancing all those beneficial uses. And just witnessing your ability to lead that group, to foster a consensus dialogue, to do the scientific work and really ground decisions in facts, and improve the understanding of all the stakeholders there. And having the opportunity to witness that both as a staff in water rights, trying to understand how that system could work in that river, but also now at the board, making policy decisions around using that information and just having the trust and confidence in that really just was impressive. And I know there are so many other examples of you doing that same work over your career. That's just the one that comes to mind that I saw most closely. So I wanted to bring that up today. And I don't know if you have a subscription to the Masterclass app, or if you've ever heard of that. But you get dignitaries, presidents, experts, and all, chefs, and anyone who's an expert in their field. They record videos of them teaching you their craft. And Jonathan, I think in terms of policy negotiation and this kind of work that we do, you're right up there. And so I really thank you, and we're going to miss you.
Thank you very much. I remember well those long meetings down in the LA's conference room or boardroom with the pillars everywhere to hide behind.
Yeah, trust is no easy thing in this line to really be able to develop, and you make it seem quite easy. So, all right. Well, thank you for this moment to be able to acknowledge Laurel, Board Member Firestone,
Sorry.
Board Member Morgan.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I will just pile on, even though I know that we'll also have more time. But and I'm sorry I'm not there in person for this day. I am gonna miss you so much. And I mean, I think that what's already been said by all the board members, it's probably more eloquent than what I can share. But I mean, masterclass is really the right term in terms of being able to bring folks together. Actually, you always really listen to every party, and are able to synthesize things down to what matters, find areas of compromise, and help everyone keep perspective on what's most important. What's the whole purpose that we're trying to achieve? And how do we get to a place where we can move forward? And that is so hard. And you make it look easy, and we all need to learn from that. And I love the straight talk and the brutally honest, but I think in order to be able to bring folks together to move forward hard things that require compromise, that require listening, that require, again, everyone to have a common vision of what is the point that we're trying to do and how can we best move that forward, you need to be able to communicate that clearly. And certainly as a board member, I've so appreciated that. I hope that I think I'm a little still in denial that you're going to be actually retired. So I hope we can find ways to keep you engaged in different ways just for the benefit of the state. You're such an important, you've really shaped so much of everything about how we protect water in the state. And then, as a stakeholder before, as an advocate before I was on the board, and certainly in terms of nitrates and irrigated lands and helping me understand, how things work and being able to help participate in those discussions. I really, from all perspectives, have just had incredible respect and gratitude, and we'll miss you so much. I hope someday we can also get on the water together sometime. Loved hearing all the rafting stories, and just thanks for everything you've done for this state, for this institution, and for the waters of California.
You're here and in
Thank
denial,
you.
for sure.
And we are going to get on the water together.
Board Member Morgan.
Thank you. John, just want to say that it's been a joy working with you for the past 15 years, and just really want to, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss going to meetings with you. And just thank you for your mentorship and, you always allowing me to call you, bounce things off of you, and just being open to conversations. Your just straightforwardness, honesty, it really is just, it's refreshing and also just really appreciated. That's, sometimes I just need that straightforward talk. Let's just get to the point and work through things and see, how do we move water forward in California? And that's what you've always done. That's who you are. That's how you make sure people come together, have a good conversation, move things forward. And so it really has been a joy to watch that in you, watch just how you present yourself at a meeting, have a great discussion, and also just the respect from our community, our stakeholders, our interested parties, just how much they respect you and how much they want to engage and have those conversations because you're there, you're at the table, and they can trust what you have to say and believe in those conversations that they have with you. So thank you. It truly has been a joy these past 15 years, and I'm pretending that this is not happening. So thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. That's enough embarrassment?
I don't know. There's a whole line of folks that are going to start coming down right now. Well, for now, enough embarrassment until your retirement party, and then we're really going to lay it on even thicker. So can't thank you enough, and just incredibly impressed and just fortunate for your continued leadership here. Thank you, John. Thank you. All right. That wraps up our board member reports. We will not go into closed session today, so that brings us to the end of our meeting as well. We're adjourned until our next board meeting, which will take place, oh gosh, May. I'm going to make sure I leave the right day. Yeah, John doesn't have to remember the date. It is, we will be here the May 6th. Thank you. And so until then, be well, everyone. Thank you for the great discussion this morning. Thank you again to John, and we will see you here May 6th. This meeting is adjourned.